My name is Nick Taylor. I'm a staff engineer at Netlify, and we are back on livecoding.ca. I'm super stoked to be hanging with Lucia Cerchie today. Lucia is somebody I've known through my virtual coffee community, and she's also been on the dev stream, I think once, maybe twice, I can't remember. So yeah, great having you back, Lucia. And yeah, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we'll
Yeah.
take it.
Yeah, I also can't remember how many times I've been on the dev stream, but yeah, I'm Lucia Cerchie. I am a software developer at StepZen. We're GraphQL as a service, helping you connect to multiple backends, including REST. Today, I'm going to show you three low-code solutions for connecting to REST APIs, but also towards the end, we'll get into database and other GraphQL backends. I came into tech with a background being an elementary school teacher, and I had a lot of fun
Okay.
back then teaching kids about reading and colors, and now I like to teach about tech. So here we are.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. I know I've talked to people before about career transitioning, and I honestly think a lot of folks that were previously teachers have a leg up on a lot of people. Obviously, there's technical skills you need to learn too in programming, but I think
Yeah.
if you have those teaching skills, that's like huge because that'll take you a long way. And also, if you're probably a good teacher, you're probably can learn things really well too. So yeah, no, that's cool. And thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
So, speaking of learning and teaching, what are we going to get up to today?
Yeah. So we are going to start off with Rest to GraphQL, which is a tool that helps you. You can just basically paste in a REST endpoint, and then you will get a consumable GraphQL, deployed GraphQL
Okay.
endpoint. Once you're
Okay,
done
gotcha.
working with it, I'm just gonna go live. Here
Cool,
we go.
cool.
See my
Yeah, here we
entire
go.
screen. Okay, awesome. So this is it. As you can see, we can send either a GET or a POST request with the tool. And then there are some different options. We can send it with query parameters, headers, post with JSON, or send path parameters. Real quick, if you need a reminder or you're not familiar, query parameters are those parameters. Well, I'll start with path parameters are like these ones where you can have
Okay.
either an individual object or treat like a list of them. Whereas a query parameter would be something like, let's see,
Before
uh,
you continue, Lucia,
yeah,
I can see the screen fine. Do you mind zooming it in the rest?
yeah,
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thanks.
nice,
Just to give
of course.
the folks at home a better view. Cool. Yeah,
And
sorry, go
then
ahead.
a query parameter is like where you would add your own parameter in there with that's most of the time we use them to filter out specific data versus getting a whole list or getting one by an ID or something like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool,
So
cool.
the first thing I'm going to show you is how to generate a GraphQL API when we're want some. So we'll also get some boilerplate code back, and this will show us how to. The boilerplate code will
Okay.
give us a request that posts with JSON. So I'm going to start with. We're just going to use HTTP bin, which is like it's a sample API. It's really
Okay.
helpful for when you're. What's that?
I know I was gonna say I knew
Yeah.
about the other one, the Tippy code. I didn't know about HTTP bin.
Yeah, it's super helpful. You can use like all the kinds of HTTP methods on it, like delete as
Okay.
well, which is it's kind of like otherwise sometimes it'll be hard to find sample APIs that let you do methods that mutate the data, but
Oh, okay, yeah,
that
gotcha. Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I
It's
mean?
not like anybody's
Yeah.
gonna say, "Hey, come mess around with my live database." So.
Exactly, exactly. So this is
Okay,
nice, and I'll
gotcha.
just grab for my super high tech Google Doc here.
Yeah.
Grab the JSON that I want to send. Okay, and the good thing about this is that it's a nice little feature of the tools that it validates the JSON for you. So if you
Okay,
pasted
that's
it in
nice.
wrong, yeah, because when you're copy pasting, sometimes things get a little interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if you've had this issue, but so many times when I've copied stuff, sometimes it's out of Google Docs or somewhere else. Like, you know how the quotes are like there's curly quotes and like regular quotes. sometimes I've stared at code before and I'm like, why
Yeah.
why is it complaining? And then it's like
Yes.
30 minutes later I'm like, oh, it's got the curly quotes. That's why.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So the validation is nice. I just hit generate and here's our endpoint. It is public. It's
Okay.
available for around 30 days. If
Okay.
you'd like a private one or one that'll last longer than that, you can sign up. So as you can see, it generates some boilerplate for you to use in your app, and in a few minutes, we will, we'll paste it into a next app and see how that works. But I'm going to show you a
Okay.
few more things in the JSON to SDL tool. And I forgot to give an
Cool.
overview of what we were doing. So
We can do
what
it.
we're
No
going to do
worries.
is, yeah, we're going to work through the different options with converting REST to GraphQL. And then after that, we're going to take
Okay.
a look at another low code tool that StepZen has that gives you the option of kind of narrowing down
Okay.
what kind of types you want to generate for your GraphQL schema, and that's called JSON to SDL. And then at the end, we'll go over to StepZen's command line interface, and we'll play around with importing REST
Okay.
APIs, importing a sample database, and then importing another GraphQL API. So
Cool, cool.
um,
And so you said the endpoint there, it's good for about 30 days?
yes, yes.
Okay.
And
All
then
right.
as you can see, this is up, it's working. Well, the key one and
Yeah.
key two are null. I think I didn't provide values for maybe.
Uh, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna be the annoying person. Do you mind zooming this in a bit too? I guess
Of
any. I just know there's folks sometimes will be like, "Hey, I can't see," so sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No, I
Cool,
do
cool.
appreciate the reminders. That's something I'm working on with my live stream presence. So that's awesome. But yeah,
Cool,
you can
cool.
see we've got the data coming back from the endpoint. So, and this is, if you're unfamiliar with what graphical is, it's open source actually. So you could create this option on any GraphQL API that you deployed. But it's a query editor that lets you kind of play around with your GraphQL endpoint and test it out. So you could
Okay.
like remove
I,
fields and add them and then see how you can structure your queries.
okay. And in regards to the, I mean, I think the name of the tool kind of says it all, but like, I guess this is a nice way to get started with like, hey, I've got like a REST endpoint. I just want to make things all, come into GraphQL land. And like, and I know
Right.
like in some other tools you've shown before, like you can aggregate different REST endpoints or basically anything in the GraphQL, but this is a nice way to just
Exactly.
say, hey, let's just go right away. So I like that.
Yeah. So if you've got a lot of different backends and you want them to play nicely, a GraphQL layer or even like a super graph and then having smaller graphs to separate them out can be really
Yeah.
useful, which that's why we include importing other GraphQL APIs into, if you're wondering why you would do that kind of meta
Okay.
thing. But yeah, so that can be a super helpful way to structure an application, especially ones with like backend and front end teams when you might have a GraphQL structure where the backend is like,
Okay.
this is totally complete. We've got everything you could ever want,
Yeah.
queryable in
Yeah.
this GraphQL schema. And the front end team is like, can we just have the, what we're going to display in the user interface
Yeah.
for this part of the
Yeah.
page. So you can separate your schemas out and then connect them using our different custom directives and things like that. But I'm talking too much
Okay.
without doing doing more here. So yeah, the next example I'm going to use is path parameters. I can zoom in on this too, but you're going to see it big on the screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, it's
just let
okay.
me know. And then I'm gonna,
Okay.
so with path parameters, this is SpaceX REST endpoint. And then what we're doing is we're calling their launches endpoint and we're going to try to generate some boilerplate that will allow us to query by ID. So yeah.
Okay. And this is something you do in like an app anyways, like if you were to
Yeah.
say like go get me all the I guess the spaceship since we're looking at SpaceX, or go get me the
Yeah.
spaceship with ID whatever and you'd probably have a route in your app or something and it would probably map to getting data similar to this, I guess.
Yeah. I've got an app
Okay.
I've already put the boilerplate in there and I'll show it to you
Okay.
in a sec. Oh,
Oh, that's
interesting.
great.
Let's try it again. I must
Yeah.
have some kind of, let's put
Let's The placeholder changed it from SpaceX back to the default one, I think.
Let's see. I'll
Okay.
remove that too because I
Do you
don't know how
need
it got in.
to? Oh yeah, I was gonna say you have to put a key. Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's try it one more time and make sure that I don't have. If I left that dash in there, that definitely won't do
Oh,
it.
okay. Okay.
Got to be
Gotcha.
careful. So, moment of truth.
Yeah. I won't lie. Watching the StepZen logo
Mhm.
bounce is satisfying.
Is
Um,
fascinating.
cool.
So I'm gonna try again, but with a different endpoint right now, just to see if that.
This is the beauty of live coding. It's
Yeah. Or you know what? I can just show you the minimize Discord here. I can show you the app that I've made with this. So and then we can move on to query parameters next. So this is a next, like your classic Next.js starter code. And
okay.
then this from line like here to here, that's the boilerplate that was generated for me when I ran
Okay.
that. And then let's see. Yeah, so we've got this query which I could prettify. I need to get a GraphQL prettifier in my VS Code at some point. But it's querying a bunch of data on SpaceX by the ID, and then I'm just kind of returning the ID to
Okay.
the user interface. Where
I
is
think
that?
we
Right here.
could
You can see I'm doing some
if you
healing.
if you
So
zoom that in one more. I don't know if maybe
thank
we could
you.
open up the VS Code the whole way of the window if you want, but
Yeah,
if not, that should be okay. Yeah, and
there
then you
we go.
could zoom in just a little bit more. I'm just it's something I'm always so paranoid about because I've
Yeah.
streamed so many times and people are like, "Ah, I can't read it." Okay, cool.
Okay, so now
So yeah.
I've got it up on my local host. So I'm going to show you that, and it's basically you can just see the ID that's coming up, right?
Mhm.
So this is just how you would get data and consume it in Next.js app. The next
Okay.
thing that I can show you is we'll create a GraphQL API over the Studio Ghibli REST API. I love Studio Ghibli. I don't know if you like to
Ghibli?
watch
Is
those
that what it's
movies.
called?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a free Ghibli API and it's super fun to use for demos because I love all the characters
Okay.
in the movies. It's like Spirited Away and what other popular movies? It's like anime. But anyway, so and then we'll go back into the next JS app and I'll show how to consume that boilerplate. So
Okay. Sounds good.
yeah. And this is going to be using query parameters, like we talked about before. Yeah, and so you can either put them in with keys and values, or you can just generate them.
Okay, yeah, because
So
it's using the get, so you can just put them in the query string. Okay. And the code samples, I saw this loading up before. It gives you a few languages, right? Yeah. Okay. Curl,
yeah,
Python, and
yeah. So we will probably take a look at Python in a minute here, but
okay.
let's get JavaScript inside. I think what I'm going to do
Okay.
is since I've got most of the boilerplate in there, I'm just going to copy it. I'm not
And
making too many
so,
people dizzy here, but and
oh, it's
then
all
putting the endpoint and the fetch. And I'll just walk through the boilerplate actually real quick too. I think would be a good idea. So
okay.
we've got a headers object. We're setting the content type to application JSON. This is set by default. So as you notice, I haven't shown you what's going on in the headers tab in Convert REST to GraphQL yet.
Hmm.
So it'll set this by default for you.
Okay.
I could also put
Gotcha.
it in there, but this is the GraphQL query. So we've set it, we're taking the query as a string and then transforming it to JSON.
Okay.
This is the variables. It introspected the endpoint that I had with the limit equals 1 and saw that, oh, this is limit with string type and yeah, we're going to send it as a variable. So that's nice about this boilerplate generation because every time I consume a GraphQL API, I'm like writing this up by hand. So
I can't stop saying Ghibli. It's that's all I
yeah,
got in my head. You're talking,
yeah,
and all I'm
Ghibli.
hearing in my head is Ghibli, Ghibli.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to say. My daughter watches the Kiki's Delivery Service
Okay.
Movie, I think, like, twice a weekend. It's pretty funny, but
Cool,
they're
cool.
pretty fun. We'll have to look at some of the data that comes back so you can see what they're like. But anyway, we've
Yeah.
got request options here. We're setting the method to be is post. So even though this was a get request that we sent at the beginning, it's something that I have to work on understanding, but GraphQL like operates mostly through post requests. So
Okay.
it's or it could be that I left. We'll see. But anyway, then we've got headers that are set here, and then the body is this GraphQL variable. And then
Okay.
we're just using the fetch API to get the response, and then we'll be able to generate it. So I also need to change this, but
Okay.
everything else I believe is the same
Yeah.
in here. So
Okay. So okay, so we're pasting this in. We're in a Next.js page.
mhm.
There's the get server side prop, so that's so we can go fetch some data and then load the page with whatever we get.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. We can talk about that too. So this
Oh,
is this is how I always start off fetching fetching data inside Next.js. I used to do it on the client, and then I realized if I want to ever add a key, then it's just going to be exposed right away. So if I
yeah.
ever wanted to develop an app like with production in mind, get server side props is not only like more secure, but it's also easier in my mind to just have it right there and then be able to.
Yeah.
So what Next.js is doing is that we're returning as props the result,
Mm-hmm.
and it pulls it into as a prop into this component right here. So
Gotcha.
this should be broken now because this will no longer peel off the right data. So let's take a look
Oh yeah, because
in the
we changed the
browser.
endpoint.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to do
Yeah.
a little bit of, let me reload it.
But that's good.
Yay!
It's nice to see. It's also good to show things breaking too, honestly. So yeah, so we got to do some refactoring to get the correct props
Yeah,
or destructured stuff out of the response here.
yeah. So kind of what I do is just I'll console log the response just to see how I can what needs to be unpeeled. Maybe it's in my terminal. Hold on.
Oh yeah, because
When I reload
it's gonna log it server side.
of undefined. Oh well, let me just get rid of that code for now so that it'll even show up. Okay, so
Oh yeah, there you go.
that is what we want to get into.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna be saying that like all day. And I'm gonna be in a meeting tomorrow, and they're gonna be like, "What's wrong with you?"
like,
I'm
are
like,
you okay? Like I did a
"Yeah,
live stream. Not okay. So let's see. So we're gonna grab the first object in this Ghibli API query array, and we're just gonna, I don't know, grab like the title. As far as I remember from playing with this, that is definitely an we can double check in the browser. But
okay,
oh, there we go.
okay,
So
cool."
yeah,
And
we
yeah, we
can
got
see
the
the data's
response
coming in
data.
here.
Okay,
Yeah, and so the title of the movie that's the first one in that array is Castle in the Sky. So that is how
okay,
you can like that's what how that boilerplate makes it easier to consume your deployed GraphQL API. And then if you want to make the API your own, then
okay.
you sign up with StepZen. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, I think. I'm going to show one more thing. I'm thinking about what I want to do for Python because I have a Python app set up here. Hold on. What am I doing right now? Oh, it's just a random. Okay. Yeah, let's do the Frankfurter API now. So the Frankfurter API, it sounds like don't these have fun names? But it's disappointing because it's not about hot dogs.
Oh, okay, I'm very disappointed now. That's what I thought it was gonna be about.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So
Not that I'm
uh
like huge into like hot dogs or anything. And
yeah, it just well, there was recently we had a blog post about alpaca, the alpaca API, and it was like, sweet alpacas. And then it turns out it's like in a like a stock
would have
call it
been
stock exchange
so.
API. Yeah, and I was like, oh well, this is still really cool because it steps in GraphQL, but I was
Yeah,
hoping
yeah,
for alpacas, you know. Um,
yeah. I'm a big fan of alpacas. That's there's There's surprisingly a lot of alpaca farms in just outside of Montreal or like
no way.
in Quebec, the province I'm in. Alpacas, llamas, like the picture I have of the llama on my stream, you can't see it now, but on
Yeah.
Twitch, it's an alpaca farm about an hour and a half away, and it's one of my favorite pictures because it's partially the way the hair color is, but it looks
Yeah.
like the alpaca looks like it's giving like a kind of like a sneaky smile, like I'm gonna get up to
Right.
something. So, anyways, I there's just lots of
That's
alpacas here.
that's awesome.
That's all I have to say,
Yeah.
folks.
Yes.
We
I
should
would
make
not
an
expect
alpaca
that
API.
in Canada. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, there
Yeah.
you'd have it'd be a great learning API with all the breeds. Anyway, so Frankfurt is actually like it's an exchange rate app. So
Okay.
interesting in its own right, right? So you could send and we'll send the information that we want through query params. So this time I'm
Okay.
using the interface rather than just leaving it in the endpoint. So we can send an amount and then from oh gosh, I forgot what this stands for, like which currency.
So
Oh, gotcha.
I'm
Okay. All
pretty
right. Yeah,
sure.
I forgot.
Great,
I
great,
forgot that was
Great
still yeah.
Britain pound, Great British pound, maybe.
A Great British
Uh,
Pound, let's say that. It's probably
uh,
you know,
it's.
we could do a quick Google too. Let's see, and
I'm
then
pretty sure it's.
whatever it is, it's 2 US dollars, so that's
Okay.
the query we're hoping to get here.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking. I'm pretty sure it's British pound. GBP. Yeah, British pound.
Awesome, and then the G is great. That's awesome. Well, that's funny. So you can see here we've got the Python set up, and
Okay.
this is using HTTP client. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
switch, I think, out to requests because that's HTTP. Can never say that like clearly,
Yeah.
but it's just a little bit of a more of like an old school way to do it. So
Yeah.
that's what I'll be showing you in the Python example. But as you can see, we've got introspected here. We've got talking about introspection. I feel like this is a little all over the place, but I really want to show you, talk about introspection for a second. So
Yeah. Yeah.
this is
Thank you.
the query, right?
Okay. Let's.
And so
Can
we
we
can
just zoom this in
see,
a bit again too?
yeah.
Hate to be interrupting person, but that's me today. Sorry.
No, no worries. No worries. So
Cool.
you can see we've got an amount of this is the default rates because you can see I haven't set the variables here. They're dynamic.
Okay.
So this is the API's default. The base is gonna be EUR. Interesting. That must also be the default. So that's the euro, and this is the exchange rate with the US dollar right now. But what the reason this query just showed up when we opened it, right? And it was generated with introspection, which is a really interesting and fun thing I think that's available with GraphQL APIs. So you can
Okay.
query it and then you can get the structure of the API back with this query. Like every GraphQL API that is created, you'll be able to run a query similar to this on it and then get back, okay, it has a Frankfurter type, it has a query type,
Okay.
float type. They're all going to have float in billion types because those are default GraphQL API types. And then we can see there's different directives. We should put the name there too, but I can guess by the
Yeah.
descriptions what they are.
Uh,
But
I was gonna ask you. I remember you talked about direct because I haven't done a lot of GraphQL. What are directives again?
yeah, so directives are they look kind of like I'll just type in here. It's going to yell at me, but they kind of
Okay.
look like this where this is one that's available across all GraphQL APIs called at deprecated and as you can see here it directs so it's something that you add to a query or
Okay.
even like a field, and it affects how the data is generated. So this
Oh,
one
okay.
directs the executor to include this field or fragment only when the if argument is true. So that would be an app. Actually, I think there's an app boolean now where you can include logic inside your GraphQL request, and if the logic is true, it will go. And then we have things
Okay.
like at deprecated. StepZen has one that's called at rest, and that's what's behind the scenes here. It's connecting to that REST API and creating a GraphQL
Okay.
API inside that schema.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a quick Google because it looks like decorators and there's a decorator proposal in JavaScript. It exists in TypeScript, but it allows you
Ooh,
to run logic as well. So it and I I don't know what this. I just found some other GraphQL project, but they're saying yeah, it's similar to decorators. So you can kind of encapsulate some logic, like you were saying, to do something. So I guess they must have got
Yeah,
inspiration from there. So
that's good to know. I'll look that up, and next time I'm describing this to a JavaScript developer, I'll be like, "It's kinda like decorators."
cool,
Cool.
cool.
So let's go back. We're
Yeah.
looking at the Python here. So I'll pull up my Python app, and we'll talk through. I'm just gonna make sure this is closed so it doesn't interrupt anything. We just do a few things to make sure y'all can see it.
Okay.
So this query was on a sample API, and when I'm just gonna actually walk through the code first. So we're
Okay.
inside a Python application. We're importing
Gotcha.
Flask, which is kind of like Django, which is kind of like a templating language.
Okay.
In if you were a developer in another language, and it allows us to do things like just run this app and see what comes back with our route. We're
Okay. Gotcha.
importing a requests module. We're importing something that allows us to use environment variables, except I don't think we necessarily need it in this implementation, but we could
Okay.
easily see that in a second. And then we're defining a query, which in Python you've got like these triple double quotes to find
Okay.
strings. So this is just a string on different lines. And then
Okay.
so when it's on one line though, you can have these just one marks.
Okay.
Forgive
Gotcha.
me if everyone is familiar with this, but I just wanted to go through and make sure I
Oh,
explain it
no
in
worries.
case.
Yeah, I
Uh,
haven't really done much Python myself. I think I did a bit of Django a few years ago. I had to convert some Django app to like a React project. So it was,
oh,
but
interesting.
I know it's pretty popular. Like Django and Flask are pretty big in the Python space, I believe. I think
Yeah.
you've done, I think, quite a bit of Python. Is that right?
I've done like I don't know, just probably a similar amount to you, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, but I'm dying to like try. I was hoping to get like PyScript going for this, and I was like, "There's no way I have the time to learn all of it before the live stream." But
All good.
that
All good.
PyScript really excites me. I'm excited to learn how to use Python in the browser. So anyway, we're making a post to the URL, and then the query is defined as this query, and then it's JSON equal, so that must be doing the JSON encoding for us. The
Okay.
requests API must be doing that, I'm guessing here. And then we're
Yeah.
gonna print this out to the terminal so we can see what comes up, and then we're gonna also be able to see it when we look at it locally because we're returning the text of the response.
Okay.
So if I run, I think it's just Flask run development server. So let's check this out, make sure that's coming back. Yeah, so that
Okay.
that's like basically the mock data that's coming back from our API.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's try to get the Frankfurter data in there.
Okay.
Um,
And for those who, because a few people just started tuning in, it's not a hot dog API. It's
yeah,
a it's a finance. It's
sadly it
a
is. It's a finance
yeah,
API. Yeah,
yeah. But
sorry.
for those out there in the stream crowd, feel free to create a hot dog API. Or we're also talking about creating an alpaca API. I am very interested in doing that. So
Yeah,
if
we
anybody
should.
wants to, we can start a Kickstarter. Maybe, who knows? Or oh,
Right. Yes, I like it. All right, so this payload here is what's going to be our query in here. We might have to edit this a bit. Whoa. So it's encoded. I'm going to, or you know what would
okay,
be easier is to go back to the graphical and just get a non-encoded version of what the query we want. So that's
okay,
really
okay.
like the major advantage of using a graphical window is like finding the queries that you want to use in your apps. I believe this is
Yeah,
um,
and the code gen tools are definitely it's definitely handy. Like you don't want to be
yeah,
doing some of this stuff manually. So yeah,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. So
Uh,
all right, now we'll see. Rerun this. I'm sure there's a way to do it that'll automatically take my changes. Oh,
okay,
look, we got the response console logged. So let's see if it's up here.
okay,
And yeah,
all right.
so that's how you could put it into your Python app. We also have a Python StepZen sample. I can give it to you after the stream. It's a link. So if you
Yeah,
need
yeah, for
just a
sure.
little bit of boilerplate there for consuming GraphQL in Python, that's helpful. I definitely used that to prep for this live stream.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, and yeah, no, so you can pretty much put any that's the GraphQL endpoint there, but if we were to go back to the start, you can put any REST endpoint, right? Okay.
Yes. And
Um,
you could use if you needed to add keys, you could do it here. I
okay.
chose just because we're live streaming, I chose APIs that didn't use authentication, but
Okay,
you
okay.
can do it on a just grab a key from whatever API you're using and put it in the
Okay.
header
And then
spot.
okay, yeah, and so the headers we can add the stuff like you said, it's by default the application slash JSON's there, but if there were other headers you wanted to add,
Yeah.
like maybe for authentication or something, and the JSON, this is like I know like Postman's all about APIs, but like Postman has like and tools like that, including this, it just provides those different ways that you can send information across the wire. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and then
Okay.
this also deploys a GraphQL API for you, so
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, definitely does that. I just meant more
yeah.
in terms of the initial API,
Right,
sorry, or
right,
UI, not
yeah.
API.
We
Uh,
also have a Postman collection too, that's another link that I could add. But
oh, okay,
Postman now, the new interface or I think it was before the new interface that they had these, but they have collections where you can, like, create saved queries, and
okay,
then you can you can then fork them, and so you can take other developers' saved queries and kind of add them to your own implementation and play around with that. So it's pretty fun. So yeah, yeah. The
okay, cool.
next thing that I like to show is let's go back to, I think I still have the Ghibli one up. I'm going to close out the Frankfurter one so I don't get
Yeah,
confused.
Ghibli.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Yeah. So yeah. So
Yeah,
you
this
can
one.
see here.
Do you mind zooming this one in too? Sorry.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
There is definitely like a lot of data coming back. So I was going to, what
Okay.
if you wanted to like more manually, for whatever reason, create your own schema inside a project and
Okay.
deploy it with the steps in command line interface. I'm going to show you how to use JSON to SDL to take, and SDL is schema definition language, to take a JSON response if for whatever reason you didn't have the endpoint or you wanted, say, we introspected the endpoint, but in my schema, I don't want more types than I need, and I don't need movie banner and locations. So I'm going to
Okay.
get back the response. Like I could always just not query those, but if I don't want to like waste space, then I can take those out of this data and then I can create a new schema in JSON to SDL here. So
Okay.
this is, I'm going to refresh the page because I was doing that earlier. So with JSON to SDL, you enter like a JSON response that this is will also complain if you copy pasted the wrong JSON. So I'm happy to see that it's working. And then it will output GraphQL for you. So once we hit
Oh, no way.
convert, yeah, that's the type that we need. So okay, say I wanted to create a query that just returned this type. Data, these are kind of wrappers, so I'm just gonna copy this one.
Okay.
Let's go back to the Ghibli Next projects. And what we're going to do here is we're going to manually create a StepZen workspace.
Okay.
And then usually with StepZen workspaces, you'd want to think it through and create different subfolders based on queries and types and extensions, like which will pull together different APIs, and then those subfolders would be inside, another folder that is just the Ghibli API. And then say we wanted exchange rates in the world of Ghibli, then we could have
Okay.
another folder. But what I'm going to do, because this is all we really have to do, it's such a small schema, is just create an
Yeah, yeah.
index.graphql here. So, and what I'm also going to need to do is add a query type to complete this. And I'm
Okay.
going to write a query that's, let's just call it, what is this, movies? It's returning that one Ghibli API query type.
Okay, I
And
gotcha.
you might have noticed I had autocomplete there. You can install a GraphQL extension that can help with that, and then also with it'll all look one color unless unless you install that. So
Okay,
it's very helpful to add, just like yeah, with any other new
cool,
language.
cool.
But and then I'm going to use one of those directives we're talking
Okay,
about, which is StepZen's at rest directive connecting us to the endpoint. So we don't need configuration here. And result root is if there's like a data wrapper and we could peel it off using that. But also again, we don't have that. So
okay,
configuration would be a config file that we had for stuff like keys. I'm gonna go grab the endpoint and put it in that argument. I believe it's just okay.
cool. Just checking in on the chat here. All right, cool, cool. Yeah. Okay, so oh yeah, I saw that too. I'm gonna drop a link. You're using the StepZen CLI. Is that what you're doing?
Yes. So
Okay.
it is. I am on what? So I am on a beta version because I'm helping test out some new fun stuff. But everybody usually, if once you install it, I think you'll be on version like 16.0.
Okay.
And it also tells you the node version you're on, which is helpful when you. But yeah, so this is the steps and CLI, and when I hit start, it'll do a couple of things. It will upload my schema to steps and service, and then it'll
Okay.
deploy it to a new API.
Okay. And I mean, because you work with this all the time, I'm assuming you're logged in as yourself, right? Like if I were to start using it, I
Oh
would need
yeah,
to log in first. You don't need to log out. I don't want to mess up the workflow, but I I dropped a link to the CLI. Well, what I googled, I found, and yeah, so there, it looks like there's log in, log out. I mean, there's a bunch of commands, but
yeah,
yeah, okay, cool,
yeah.
cool,
I
cool.
am logged in as I believe as myself. We're also working on a public implementation, so I might be, I might not be, but okay. So, but yeah, so my endpoint, I'm going to accept the auto-generated name. So I'm going to excited
Okay,
PN for now. And then this deploys my API to StepZen. Okay, so again, we have access to that graphical editor. We don't really need it right now, but this is my new URL. So if I, let's see, I'm going to open up a new terminal. I think that's just the most helpful case right now. So if
yeah,
I go to this index, I can see that I'm consuming that old endpoint right here.
okay.
So it will still work, right? This is like the tricky thing about this is that this endpoint is public. So it will still work. Like all of
Oh, okay,
this
yeah, yeah,
this stuff
gotcha.
will still work. So the real magic will be when we replace this endpoint with the one that I have in this window, and that also works because I will have or actually hmm, it won't because check out the query I have here, there's no limit parameter. So what I'm
Oh,
actually
okay.
going to do is I'm going to go back to that localhost again and get a query that I know will work, and then we can go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool,
Okay.
cool. Yeah, no, this is it's a lot to take in, but these are a lot of cool tools. The even
Yeah, yeah,
the STL one, the if you don't mind going back to your fourth tab you have open for a second there, the
yeah,
JSON to STL. Even this is pretty cool. So this is essentially
yeah.
you can paste in whatever JSON you want, and it's able to infer the types to generate a
Yes,
proper schema. Like I know it's not
yeah.
TypeScript, is how I got to start doing more GraphQL. But yeah, essentially you're
So there, yeah, they
getting
are
the
types.
types. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's pretty
yeah.
neat.
GraphQL syntax, there's not a lot of names, but query
Okay.
means like 6 things inside the GraphQL,
Ah, okay.
schema
Okay.
definition language world, so there's definitely, like, a little bit of a query problem because, like, there can be a query type, there can be the query
Okay.
that you send, there's the query that you write, there's so, like so you
Okay.
gotta, careful with, like, Slack communications definitely when it comes to
Okay.
talking about queries. Uh,
Gotcha.
but I digress. Let's so I've
That's all
grabbed the
good.
query from my graphical little playground, and I'm going to inject it into this
Okay.
page. Oh my goodness. All right. Where, and then I think I can just do, where does this end? Where's the query end? think I can just do that. And then, so something to note, sometimes our new users will take this local host and assume that that is the new endpoint. It's a localhost endpoint with a
Okay.
graphical attached. This is the one that the API is published to, so that's the one we'll be querying to.
Yeah, gotcha. Oh, Dan says hi. Dan on.
Oh, I'm not Googling.
It's
My my voice app came up and asked if I wanted to Google Dan. All right, let's see. Make sure I've
okay.
saved this.
Yeah. Okay, so we're starting with
So,
the site again. Okay.
yep. And what we've done is we've replaced the query and the endpoint with values that will work from the one that we've created manually.
Okay, gotcha. Dan
So
says
let's
don't Google him. I don't know if is that a challenge, Dan? Like what like dark secrets are we gonna find if we Google him?
yeah.
I'm like, I'll have to wait till I get off my work laptop.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, if it's Dan from StepZen, a lot of things maybe about air plants and he has amazing poodles, so Object with
that's
Keys
Dan
movies,
Ott.
awesome.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
it's
So we
Dan
got the
Ott. Yes. So
okay.
title, see if that comes up. Oh, interesting. Well, let's console log it and see what shape we've got. Like back
Yeah,
here.
cool.
Okay, there's an object.
So in the
Data, no
data
movies.
movies.
Oh, let's grab the director, I guess.
Okay.
Mm, interesting.
Sorry, I'm
Let's
still
see.
laughing at Dan Ott's comments. Okay, so yeah, so we've got
Oh,
the
I don't
image.
even need, it's not an array. So
Okay,
this
gotcha.
is too dizzy to look at. Let's data movies. Dot director. So if it's not an array, I don't need to grab the first object in it. There we go. So that's
Okay.
the director, not the title. But yeah. So that was how we could use not exactly manual because we use JSON to SDL, right? And that's doing a huge amount of the heavy lifting for us. We don't have to like go through the JSON ourselves and kind of figure out what GraphQL types would match, but definitely like a closer to the metal way of creating your GraphQL API.
Okay. Cool. Okay. And then yeah, okay. So then there's that. And then obviously we're just getting the data back. We can build whatever we want in the page. And then
Right.
like
Yeah.
we could build like some custom route, like, the next has the routes where you can have the
Oh
dynamic
yeah, the
routing.
dynamic. Yeah, you could totally do that. Just iterate through
Yeah.
if you had an array. Yeah. Can
Yeah.
even introduce some pagination. Yeah, it'd be fun to
Yeah.
do that.
But that's cool. And for
So I think I have
those,
just
what's that?
go ahead. No, go
Oh
ahead,
no, I
Nick.
was just gonna say because I think Dan joined a little later, just saying we're using it's called the Ghibli API. I learned
Yes.
about it today, so I dropped the link if you scroll up in the chat there. But
Yeah.
yeah, oh yeah, here it is. Yeah,
Yes. Studio Ghibli. If you like Ghibli movies.
yeah. And you said
If you
it's like anime or what is it again?
Yeah, so I don't know if you've seen like My Neighbor Totoro, like the little Totoro figure. Uh
I haven't. My daughter is big into anime. Like she's watched Naruto and stuff. Like
yeah. She's
I'm like
probably
behind the times.
familiar.
I'm so not cool, I guess. So I gotta get on this.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're very like sweet and gentle movies too. Like my 2-year-old is pretty sensitive and she never gets super, well, it
Okay.
depends on the movie, but most of them are pretty like low key and
Yeah.
relaxing. Yeah. Yeah, I like them.
Cool.
So that was JSON to SDL. I'm going to wrap up by showing how to get started with I was using the command line interface with JSON to SDL, so I'll show how to get
Okay.
started with the command line interface. And you can use the CLI to import SQL, NoSQL, REST APIs, GraphQL, or we've got some of these pre-built APIs in our GraphQL studio that you can also play around with.
Oh yeah, I
But
think this is what you when we were on. I'll find the link to it, but on the dev stream, this is what we were going through, right?
yes,
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I'll let you
yeah.
talk about this while I go find that link.
Yeah. So this is a place for you to explore GraphQL APIs. You can create combinations. Like if I wanted Cloud Immersive and Dev2, I could put those together and just waiting for that to it's loading the editor because it has to.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
basically,
and yeah.
it's like a. Oh, go ahead.
I know I was gonna say, yeah. I just remember. Yeah, we used the dev too. Yeah, but sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So you could put these APIs together here and kind of mix and mash. It's basically, yeah, it's like a fun playground to get started with projects, especially if you just want a schema to like pre-start with one of these APIs. We've got Discord. We've got,
Yeah.
I think Etherscan is like a Web3 API. All
Okay.
these fun little apps. But today we're actually just going to use like the raw power of the CLI.
Right. Power.
But so I think the first thing I'm trying to decide if we're gonna let's see how to try an example for say a MySQL database
Okay.
connection, and let's just put it into our sample app.
Okay.
So I'm gonna set up for a second because I'm gonna do some copy pasting in the terminal here, and
Yeah.
I want people to be able to see it. So okay. So
All right.
this, I'm going to run StepZen import MySQL. And then again, I'm going to be offered an endpoint. Actually, I think it might, let me go inside my StepZen workspace here. Try that again.
Uh,
Okay, so it didn't ask me for my endpoint that time because it StepZen kind of, for lack of a better word on my part, looked around in the space and saw that I had an endpoint
okay.
specified inside
Okay.
the StepZen folder here. So it's going
We
to
already
use my
have the
other
peahen.
sample one.
The peahen. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I think it is. It's like it actually is like a really boring looking bird. It sounds exciting, but it's like a peacock, but no. So this
Okay.
is a sample database that we set up for people to run through and learn how to interact with the steps MCLI with. Database name. So it's named introspection because it's introspecting this database. And then we've
So,
got
all right.
a very this password, is obviously we've set it up for demo purposes, but you
Yeah.
can always get better passwords than ones with words in them. Okay, so this has now imported the MySQL schema into
Mm-hmm.
the steps and folder. So let's look at what that means.
Okay.
We've got a MySQL folder, and inside that, we've got it's introspected the database, and this database has things like the database has tables, like an address table with this information in it, a customer table with this information, customer
Okay.
address, introspected all this, and then we can see a different custom directive here, which is at dbquery. And you can actually, oh yeah, here's an example. You can actually put
Okay.
little SQL queries inside the argument query inside this directive.
Oh,
So
okay.
it will, yeah. Uh, need to sneeze, and it's not happening.
It's
Uh,
okay. We can sneeze on camera if you want. I have I have a scene called awkward transition that can hide us for a second if you want.
no, I'm good. I'm just like I actually like am trying to sneeze and I can't. That
Okay.
feeling.
Okay. Yeah.
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 All right. So let's go back to our graphical. Here it is. And refresh, and we should see these queries coming up. That's funny that they don't. Let's see what we need to do. Probably save this.
It's
Oh, that's fun.
yeah. It
Okay.
looks like
Let's
it's
restart
updating
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Cool.
Insert.
And for those curious, I dropped a link on the differences between peacock, peahen, and a peafowl, which I guess is just
Because we are about
birds in
animals here.
general. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Still
Oh,
want
here's
that
the thing
alpaca
that's
API.
happening. So when I have multiple schemas in one StepZen workspace, then the
Yep.
index.graphql becomes the place that connects them. So I would need like this schema definition language directive to connect them. But
Mm-hmm.
since this is a fairly short schema, I'm just going to copy paste it into my index and cheat.
Okay.
And then it should pick up my query there. There we go. Okay, so now we can see, get a list of products, database error. Oh, so we should probably look at that database and make sure that the host is all set up correctly. But generally, that's how you would, as you can see, like the introspection puts together the types, and then you can query your database given, let's see our config YAML here.
Okay.
So as we can see, there's this is no secret, right? But this
Yeah.
is referred to in our configuration here.
Okay.
So this this is how it is. So I think I think my folder structure is off. Like I'm pretty sure the database is actually working, and then just inside my
Yeah, because
project.
it yeah,
Yeah.
because it generated all the queries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just for, I think maybe the config.yaml doesn't work when you have everything in the index like that. So I could
Okay.
spend some time restructuring on this, but I think we'll move on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But the
Now
main
let's
point is you can import and then you can
yes.
generate all these
Yes.
queries, and it's kind of nice that the queries are named, because I from what I
Mhm.
remember, because again, like I'm still a GraphQL noob, you can have queries without a name, right? But giving the name just obviously probably saying the obvious, but it just makes it easier to figure out what this thing is.
Yes. Yes. You can also anytime you do these import commands, you can add flags to that will prefix your types so that you can
Okay.
imagine maybe if you had two different databases, you'd have two different customer types. You could do like, like outbound customer or inbound customer and then
Okay.
differentiate that way. I think that
Okay.
is all I've got for the day. Like you can
No,
also
that's
get
cool.
started importing a GraphQL. A little challenge I'll leave you with is use import GraphQL and you can import the endpoints from the studio, like copy this and then paste it
Okay.
into the command line with GraphQL getting started. That's definitely super fun. But yeah, thanks for having me on the stream.
Yeah, yeah, no, cool, cool. And yeah, so there's yeah, the CLI, dropped the link to that. And then the we checked out all the other cool tools that you have there. So the rest to GraphQL.io, the JSON to SDL
Yeah,
is kind of nice in terms of just getting your types out right away. And that the types there, that's like in GraphQL land, the types are really this. It's not the schema per se. It's types that can be used in a schema, right?
exactly. Yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So
yeah. Okay,
yeah, so when we
okay,
ran that
cool.
introspection query, the types came back because they represent kind of the structure and the schema insofar as like you even a query is a type in a certain sense inside like you have a type
Yeah,
query
yeah.
that defines all those. So it's all about your
Cool,
types
cool.
in GraphQL.
Yeah, and then we got the CLI for folks who want to get check that out as well. I dropped a link to your Twitter where folks can check you out. And
Thank you.
also, if folks want to check out the rest to GraphQL.io, I dropped a link to it again. And there's also, yeah, the other links there for the JSON to SDL.com. I'll just drop
Perfect.
that in again. JSON to SDL.com. I
And
know you're
I
supposed
will
to say
stop.
JSON, but I always say Jason, even though I know it's JSON, just because I'm just like, I don't know. It just feels
You're
weird to say
imagining a
like,
dude named Jason. Just
well,
every time
I
you
have,
send a request that puts Jason back, Jason has to type it
yeah,
out.
yeah,
That's why we
yeah.
call it.
Jason, go get me the Ghibli. Where's my alpaca?
Yeah.
There's no hot dogs. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Cool, cool. Well, yeah, no,
Yeah.
thanks again so much for coming on, Lucia. Lots of cool tools here. I really got to start doing some GraphQL stuff. So definitely would love to have you on again another time.
Yeah.
And yeah, give Lucia a follow on Twitter. And next week, yeah, I think it's already next week. Ben Myers is going to be joining me. We're going to
Ooh, I will
be
attend.
Ben's awesome. Ben's an accessibility expert, just web dev extraordinaire, and we're gonna be working on like for folks who are watching the stream. Lucy can't see it right now, but I have the chat embedded in the stream window. So when you watch the recording, and Ben has this project called showmy.chat, and you can kind of build out a custom looking chat that you can integrate into your stream. So we're gonna do that next week and gonna figure out what works best with my stream and stuff. But looking forward to that. And then we got a few other people coming up soon too. I think Dan Ott from Virtual Coffee is going to be joining us the week after, I believe. We're going to be doing some TypeScript and Remix and all the things. So yeah, so check that out
Yeah.
if you're around the next couple weeks. And yeah, thanks
Yeah.
again, Lucia.
Bye.
All right, bye.